Welcome everybody to another episode of Top to Bottom. In today's episode, we are going to be taking a look at the new Mac Miller album, the new posthumous Mac Miller album titled Circles. I call this a posthumous album because unfortunately Mac Miller passed away in 2018, and myself, I thought that that was the end. I thought maybe there wasn't going to be any more music that comes from Mac. I thought if any music came out from Mac Miller, it would be his label or whoever was in charge of him trying to exploit him and trying to, make money off of his name. But fortunately, that has not been the case. It has been very quiet from Mac up until recently, where we got the single from this album called Good News. And then with the release of that song, we also got the announcement of this album right here, Circles. And so I'm going to be reviewing it for today's video, giving you guys my thoughts. If you guys are new to this series, basically we take the worst songs from an album and put them in order to the best. And then at the very end, I will give you guys a score and just my overall thoughts on the project that I'm reviewing. If there are skits, I will talk about them if they are relevant, but for this album, there are no skits whatsoever, so we don't have to worry about that. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. In the number 12 spot, we have Surf. This is, in my opinion, the worst track on the album, but I can't exactly say it's a bad song. It's just my personal preference. It's not a song that I necessarily enjoy, but I cannot sit here and say that it's a bad song. While I will say that Mac singing on this track is very nice, unfortunately for me, just for this song specifically, I felt like the instrumental was just a little bit too skeletal. It didn't have enough going on to really captivate me and pull me in. I will say though, the lyrics are packed with emotion. Mac is very clearly communicating his feelings effectively on this track. It's not a bad track in my eyes, it's just a little bit too slow and a little bit too drawn out for me. It is a skipper for me personally, but still, I cannot sit here and say that it's a bad song. In the 11th spot, we have I Can See. This is another song that I find a little bit underwhelming on the track list for me personally. In terms of the instrumental, I'm not the biggest fan. I think it is underwhelming a good portion of the song. However, I will admit that there are parts of the instrumental that are beautiful and transcendent. Speaking on the verses, I think they're okay. That's the most I can say about it. I just think they're okay. This song suffers in the same way Surf did, where it just didn't really captivate me all that much. But again, in the same way as Surf, I can't say it's a bad song. It just didn't really land with me. In the 10th spot, we are going to be placing Everybody. I just want to mention that there are beautiful pianos and beautiful singing to open up this song. The first verse is a little bit bland in my opinion, but it is delivered very passionately. The next two verses, in my opinion, are a lot better. And then on top of that, we also have the chorus that plays a few times during the track. And it is simple, but in my opinion, it's actually to the song's benefit. It's simple, but sweet. In the 9th spot, we have Blue World. Now, this song is strange because I didn't like the instrumental at first, but over time, with more listens, it grew on me a lot. I still don't love it, but I can definitely acknowledge that it works. It works for this track. Mac spits a couple of verses over this track with his unique flow that we have heard on previous albums. One thing I want to credit Mac, not just on this album, but just throughout his entire career, is that he has managed to carve out a lane for himself in the world of Caucasian rappers that nobody else has been able to carve. I mean, when we're talking about white rappers who have a very definitive sound, there are very few I can think of. I can think of Eminem, and then I can think of Mac Miller. Mac Miller, in my opinion, is just such a unique voice, because when I think of white rappers, the majority of them are influenced by Eminem. They are very similar to Eminem. They have a lot of traits, but Mac Miller is really unique. He is really the exception to that rule because he doesn't sound like anybody else out there. He really created his own style, he rolled with it, and he fucking killed it. But anyway, enough of my little tangent, back onto the song Blue World. Mac sounds great on this track, especially in the first few lines of the second verse. That is my favorite part of the song, where he kind of does these little peaks with his voice. You'll know what I'm talking about. Just go to the second verse of this song where he's rapping, and for those first few lines, he does these little peaks with his voice that sound really good. Mac is getting a little bit braggadocious on this track as well, if you look into the lyrics, which I think is really cool. And on top of that, this is the most upbeat sounding song so far in the track list. In the number 8 spot, we have Complicated. To speak on the instrumental of this song, it it is fun, creative as hell, and really bouncy. While the instrumental does sound very upbeat, when you actually get down to the lyrics, when you look into them, you'll actually get a grasp for Mac's mental state. He talks about how some people are always so focused on the future. Some people want to live forever, while Mac is struggling to get through one day. Today, partly in due to his deteriorating mental state that I'm sure he was in the midst of when he was making this song. It really paints a picture of Mac's mental state, and I think this song does a really good job at that. In the number 7 spot, we have Once a Day. In my opinion, this is a very fitting closer to the album, and on top of that, it also has some of the best singing Mac does on the whole project. While I do really like this track, it's one of those that I don't really have a lot to say about. I just think it's a great send-off from the album and just a farewell. In the number 6 spot, we have Hands. The intro to this song is just so strange to me. We have these high-pitched vocals that play throughout a majority of the song that really remind me of Quasimodo from Madvillainy, which is a very strange comparison. To speak on the production, for some reason, it sounds very festive to me as well. There is only one verse on this song, but that is not a problem whatsoever because Mac raps his ass off on this track. Mac manages to sound incredibly slick on this verse, especially when he comes to those taxi lines. Oh my god, I don't know why, but I love that part so much. Now we're in the top 5, and at number 5 we have That's On Me. This is actually one of the more energy intensive tracks. The chorus is very soothing while we have Mac taking the blame for some of the mistakes that I assume he made throughout his life. The verses mixed in with the production create this painfully beautiful atmosphere that honestly makes me hold back tears at how amazing it is. In the number 4 spot, we have Hand Me Down. The song starts with minimalistic drums playing while a nice guitar makes its entrance. Mac's singing once again on this track is beautiful, and his lyrics dive into his mental state and his form of coping. The chorus is sung by Baro Sura and adds a lot of flavor to this song as well, giving it a really catchy spark while simultaneously remaining gorgeous. And towards the second half of this song, Mac transitions into rapping on the second verse, and he has just a really nice flow on it. In the number 3 spot, we have Woods. This song has a really spacey beat that I just love. I cannot get enough of it. The first verse is one of my favorites on the whole album, and his singing is some of the best that I've ever heard from him. The chorus takes the energy up just a step, just a tiny bit, by adding in these gorgeous synths to the instrumental, with perfect vocal harmonies that Mac places on top of them. In the number 2 spot, we have the title track, Circles. The instrumental is beautiful. It is peaceful and calming. I think this is a fantastic tone setter to the album, with depressing lyrics that prepare you for some of the emotions that you are going to be feeling later on in this project. This song presents a very clear image of depression and the feeling of going nowhere, aka going in circles, which indirectly is a callback to the title of not just this song, but the whole project entirely. Absolutely love this track. I can't get enough of it, and as I said earlier, I think this is the perfect first song to the project. It really does prepare you for what's coming up next. And finally, in the number 1 spot, we have the single that dropped from this album, Good News. This is, in my opinion, the most depressing yet beautiful song on the whole album. What can I say about the instrumental? It is emotional and tear-jerking. I mean, not crying while listening to this song, especially while watching the music video, is a feat. It is really fucking difficult. You are going to tear up listening to this song, especially if you've had a past dealing with depression, dealing with some of the things that Mac describes on this track. Extremely depressing lyrics describing the mental state of someone who is going through depression. One line that really stuck with me is when he brought up the fact that he's constantly apologizing, but he doesn't know what for. Something else that stuck out to me is when he mentioned the vicious cycle that he's in and how he just wish he could get out of his own ways. I remember I saw a YouTube comment on the single when it went up, and someone said that this sounds like his Sitting by the Dock song, and really, I just couldn't agree more. Yeah, this song is really heavy. God, I almost feel like I'm about to fight tears just like talking about it. Like, listening to it is already hard enough, but even just sitting here and talking about it, I feel like I could tear up. I'm gonna try and compose myself though and finish this video off. I guess the final thing I can say is that listening to this song makes me hope that he's resting peacefully and that he's just in a better place. Yeah, that's the most I can really say about this track. God, I'm like really fighting back tears. It's actually God. But yeah, that has been the whole album. That is the song I place in the #1 spot, and this was a fantastic project. This was amazing. I would probably go as far as to say that it's Mac Miller's best work, or in the top 2, top 3 best Mac Miller albums ever. This album was really an emotional ride, especially with that final track, Good News. Oh my lord. Yeah, it's an experience to be had. If you've ever dealt with depression in the past, this album is really going to connect with you. Even if you haven't ever experienced depression, this album might really rub you the right way. Just go into it, and it is an experience to be had. It is a fantastic album. So that leaves us at the end here, where I just have to score it. And of course, there were 2 tracks that I did not care for on this project, but overall, this is incredibly solid, and I really do love this album. It is fantastic. Now that you've heard my thoughts on the music, in terms of rating, I'm feeling an 8 out of 10. This is a very, very good project, and yeah, I'm just really happy that I got to make this video to talk about how I feel about it. What do you guys think about this album? Leave it in the comments below, because I am really interested to hear what you guys have to say about it. If you didn't like it, that's okay, but if you loved it, I would really like to hear why you loved it and your reasonings for it. Maybe you connect with this album in a way that I don't, but that's okay, and you know, I want to hear about that. Before I wrap this video up, I just want to mention that whoever produced this album, whoever, you know, connected the dots of the work that Mac had left behind after his unfortunate passing, whoever did that, they did a fantastic job with this album. And one thing that I just love about this project is that it doesn't feel like a cash grab. This feels like it was a faithful release under Mac Miller's name. It doesn't feel like they were just trying to reach into our pockets and tug on our emotional strings. It feels like this album was made out of pure love for Mac Miller. And for anybody who handled this project, for anybody who was in the role of making it, I just have to say thank you. Thank you for not just releasing this as a cash grab, and thank you for putting in the effort for making this album what it is. But anyway, guys, I'm gonna wrap this video up here. That has been Mac Miller's Circles, top to bottom, finished. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm gonna end it here. So yeah, guys, that's pretty much the end of the video. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.